works. And then I'll go from there to the keyboard. And I'll give it another polish, and then when I'm happy with it, I'll submit it or use it in a collection or whatever I decide to do. And I usually write after work, sometimes during lunch breaks. Just depends on how long. If it's a short story, I'll probably work on it from home, but if it's a novel, I'll chip away at it in lunch breaks, but probably don't tell anybody I did it.
Why not? Do you designate a notebook for the story?
Yeah, probably. If it's a novel, I think Hollow House I bought 3 or 4 of the same notebook and I filled them up. So they were probably 100-page notebooks, so I filled all of them up with Hollow House. And yeah, I will sort of bundle them all together to sort of make it feel a bit more like a book coming to life. But short stories, I'll probably just write on any old thing I find. I collect notebooks, much to my family's dismay. They probably wonder why I've got so many blank notebooks around the place.
Got to be ready. The idea will hit you. You got to be ready. There's nothing worse than the idea coming in and out of your head and like,
I've got nothing to write on. Yeah, but I'm not one of these people that has something by, on the dresser next to the bed. I usually retain the ideas pretty well.
Good.
So I'm ready to go whenever an idea takes me. That's one of the funny things. I've never actually done character sketches or anything like that for any of my stories. It might come after the fact, after I've written the story. But I find that because I'm a visual person, I can see, like if I'm writing fiction, I can just see it all a lot clearer in my head, and it just sort of plays out like a film. So yeah, that's one of the things that makes sort of writing a bit easier for me, is that I just am able to sort of connect pretty well with the mind's eye, see what I want to bring to the story.
And then you're inspired afterwards to create covers or whatever artwork is accompanying the story.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
And now your palette, do you use a lot of digital media too now to create?
I am sort of. I have moved into that space in the last couple of years where I'm messing around with Photoshop a lot more, and that's helped me sort of work with other artists and other publishers as well. I might just create something off the top of my head, and someone will go, "Oh, well, I'd like to use that for a book cover." And so I've had a few sales through that process as well. But yeah, I like experimenting with the photo manipulation, and I find it a lot more challenging sometimes than painting traditionally or drawing traditionally.
And so going to the drawing process, do you typically, I guess back in the day, did you start with pencil and then ink and stuff?
Yeah. So pencil probably first, and then, moving on to inking. So when I was exposed to the comic books. But now I just love working in like watercolors, and it's just a really fun medium to use, and it's a lot more malleable.
Yes.
Yeah, so I've been doing that a lot more, but the digital side only in the last few years, and it's just a matter of finding the right images to use, and I see a lot of people are getting more into the stock media line these days, because there's not a lot out there for horror. There's a hell of a lot of sort of images that you could use for the romance genre or sci-fi or something like that, but not a lot in horror. But it's starting to, people are sort of catching on that, oh yeah, we could do with some more horror stock photography. Yeah.
And you, I guess, do you get in a flow and you just keep going until your hand hurts or something like that, or sometimes you just set aside certain times?
Yeah, so I'm a bit of an early bird, so I'll usually get up and paint something before I have to go to the day job, So with these Halloween ones I've been getting up every morning basically going, right, what am I going to paint? And it's really simple, just little things like one I painted yesterday was a vampire just sort of in a graveyard, and I've done a pumpkin head looking guy, and just something really quick that'll only take me 30-40 minutes, and then I can just share it online and sort of keep the Halloween vibe ticking over, and you know those hashtags like Inktober, they're massive. A lot of artists use that.
Yeah.
So I try and jump on that bandwagon if I can.
We have to start using that one. I've been doing my challenge too, and one of my previous guests is doing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see it's got something like 14 million posts or something on Inktober alone, so it's quite big.
All right, what was the idea behind the horrible coloring book?
Well, that was something. The coloring book craze came out of nowhere. Everyone seemed to be, doing something on mandalas or flowers and things like that. And I just said, I've seen a couple of horrible sort of or horror themed coloring books around, but not that many. And I thought, maybe I can do something with this. And the way my comic book sort of style of drawing just suited it down to a T. And so I did approach one publisher about it, and we did publish it in a different form called the Blood Curdling Colouring Book, but it sort of all fell over, and over just a few months. And this other guy that I work with, who runs the university bookshop, said, "Oh, well, I'll publish it." He said, "We'll just go and see a printer and we'll work out what the costs are and we'll go from there." So now it exists in the form of the horrible colouring book. And I've seen people on Instagram who've been, colouring it in, and I think there was one lady in Korea who posted that she got her copy and loved it. It just sort of came out of the blue. And it was just really fun to draw all those pages and see people colouring them in. I just got a real thrill out of it.
Well, getting to the horror genre of storytelling, what do you think makes for a good horror story?
What I think makes for a good horror story is building that sense of dread, and also, if you're going to have a monster or any sort of supernatural element, you have to make your characters real as well. Otherwise, the reader just won't be able to accept that, if you're trying to illustrate that a monster's chasing someone or tormenting somebody, they're not going to really care for the person who's being tormented unless you really put that effort in and make them as realistic as you can. The dread building. Everyone has that sense of the unknown and that feeling of the goosebumps on the skin. You've really got to build that up, and that's what makes a great horror story, in my opinion.
What scares you?
Oh, gee, what scares me? Well, I'm not a big fan of spiders. I've never actually written a story about spiders. It's probably one of the things I'll need to conquer somewhere down the line.
It's that cathartic thing,
Yeah, that's right. But I think a few years, or probably more than a few years, it'd be over 10 years ago, I had a bit of a heart problem. And I was, very young, and it did sort of put the fear of God into me, I suppose. And that's always sort of lingering in the back of my mind, that, maybe the ticker will play up again somewhere in the future. So there is that existential sort of feeling that everybody has, I think, about the frailty of life, and just how long have we got here on this earth. And I think everybody has that fear of death. And it's just one of those things that I like to use or like to explore in my art and my fiction. So I think it's always best to use those fears in your fiction writing. And yeah, so I will have to get to that spider story one day.
Mm-hmm. It's a matter of time.
Yep.
And you said Halloween is just kind of taken off in Australia recently, huh?
Yeah, probably in the last, I don't know, 5-6 years, a lot of people are having Halloween themed parties. Or see, it's not the right time of year. Over here, it's sort of late spring, early summer, and particularly where I live, where summers are pretty hot. It's not everybody's cup of tea to don some weird monster costume or rubber mask and get out there. It's just too hot for that. But just in the last 5 or 6 years, I've noticed a lot more people are getting into it, and just in my street. So I think our house is probably one of the first ones that did it, and it was probably a year or two later that suddenly we had, there's another 5 or 6 houses that are doing it, and then even more around the corner are sort of doing it, and we had hundreds of people sort of turning up on those Halloween nights or over those few days leading up to Halloween to have a look at our display, and they were all dressed up and all the kids were having a great time. We were giving out lollies and candy and all sorts of things, and it was just everyone was having the time of their lives. So we went, we've got to keep doing this now. Every year we come up with something different. So it's just, little tombstones made out of styrofoam. I've bought old shop mannequins and made them look like zombies. It's a great creative outlet for me because it goes beyond the piece of paper or the canvas, and I can make things that look as realistic as I can. And then we obviously have our own costumes, and it's just a great thing for me and the kids and the wife. We all get dressed up and get out there and dole out the candy, and everyone does the same thing, and they're all just having a great time. So I'm sure there's probably a few houses in the street that hate it, hate that because we have the street we live on is very narrow, and it fills up with cars pretty quickly when Halloween's on. So I'm sure there's people who are a bit annoyed that they can't get through the street. But what can you do?
That's it. Now, do you incorporate anything from your illustrations or novels into your decorations?
Not really. I probably should do that, but I think because of the mannequins and that, I make them look pretty horrific. That's my own sort of artistic style coming out there. And, it was fun making those tombstones, and I certainly put my own fingerprint on the things. We certainly don't buy a lot of stuff and just stick it out there. A lot of the stuff we've made ourselves. So last year we made a gigantic sort of spider out of, it was expanding foam, chicken wire, and, those pool noodles?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we made this gigantic spider out in the front yard, and the pool noodles where we had to use wire to sort of stick them all together, and it was real fun. It didn't exactly look like a spider, but it certainly scared a lot of little kids. It was a big spider. It was really big. Sadly, it's all sort of deteriorated now, so we've had to chuck it out. But we like to push ourselves and make ours pretty unique. And I know there's some other houses around the city that they have their own little haunted house walkthroughs, and they're pretty impressive. So a lot of people get into it.
That's great.
Which is great to see.
Of course, and especially you get to share this with your family, something you can do together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they know it's all fun. We're not, we're not out to terrify people a